I mean, in terms of violence, um, it's one or two things going to happen. Either you're going to be educated about it on how to exhibit violence, execute, or you're just going to learn it, based on the environment that you was in. I went to prison when I was 19. I wasn't released until I was 32. I'm 45 right now. I've been out approximately 13 years. Most people, after being released, couldn't wrap their minds around the fact that, I had served, that kind of time. My crime involved an individual who I dealt with, an associate who was robbed at a dice game. He made mention that, the individuals took full advantage of him, gang members. It being approximately 17 to 21 guys in that house. And once he relayed that to me, I began to think, damn, 17 to 21 guys. We need more bodies. Not bodies to deliver, but bodies that, can execute. And realistically speaking, I said, well, look, man, let me snatch up 2 more comrades. We'll move on. Let the sun set, we snatch up 2 more comrades, we'll move on. And that's what happened. And, I'm a male sexual abuse victim, now survivor, but victim at the time. I had been bullied, high school dropout, I had a child on the way. I had nothing in common with Cliff Huxtable from The Cosby Show. Totally the opposite. Angry youth. Angry as hell. I can recall vividly my dad saying shit like, you like you mad with the world. And I was. But at some point, certain things you can't articulate, you can't exhibit, because at that time I was 11, 12 years of age. I think I caught my first assault case when I was like 13. And here I am, 19. And in life, there are ingredients, for success. Get your sleep. Eat healthy as you can. Surround yourself with people who are on your level or who have surpassed you. Empower yourself with education, enhance your education. These are ingredients for success. But also for ingredients for failure, there is, to some degree, in my case, speaking for myself, having been sexually abused by 2 different males when I was 10 years of age, taking into consideration is like, I look at now how, people talk about hip-hop and, the influence that hip-hop has on not just black males, but black females. And it's crazy because a lot of times, we as black folk, we try to make hip-hop a theme song to our lifestyle. Or we listen to the bullshit and we try to line our lives up with it. And for me, having experienced a sexual abuse situation, by a relative, and then by a neighbor. In my 10-year-old mind frame, I couldn't wrap my mind around that because as a child, I was taught he's got the whole world in his hand. That was a song. That was a song that I wanted to line my life up with. I wanted to take, he's got the whole world in his hand. And me as a child, I'm in the world, I'm in his hand. God wasn't late. He didn't even show up. He didn't even intervene. So when the 80s roll around, I find myself fucking with music again. Now you got NWA on the scene. You got Ice-T pushing that, I'm Your Pusher, High Rollers. And I find myself listening to music. And because these were youth that looked like me, I embraced the music and made the assumption that what they were going through, I too would go through. Just like growing up in a holiness church, you know, he's got the whole world in his hand, and you know, Jesus is the battle axe. You want to line your life up with the music. And I'm telling you, homie, at age 19, I was with it. There have been times that I've been out on a Saturday, Jehovah's Witnesses come through, and it's just something about demeanor, energy. I've made them get on the other side of the street. Didn't say nothing. But my countenance, what I felt on the inside, it was displayed on the outside. I've made them get on the other side of the street. Don't bring your gospel this way. Angry. And when we went in that house that night, me being 19, there was an older guy challenged me. He said, man, you don't know what to do with that. You ain't gonna do nothing with it. And before you know it, I was letting him have it. One round after the other. And he turned and tried to bail into the next room. And I was steady letting off. And I wasn't even the first person in the house. You know, with me having prior knowledge, there's about 17 to 21 guys up in this house. You know, I say, look, man, you know, we got the four, you know, two other individuals, four of us now. I wasn't going to talk, debate, none of that. But I told the individual whose beef it was, an associate of mine that I respected out of MIA, Miami. I told him, I said, since this is your shit, you're going to go in first. And I'm going to give you this 12 gauge Marksburg. I said, when they see this, they're going to get in compliance. And just as I had anticipated, we barged in there. They turned the table over. A couple guys got duck sick. A couple guys managed to bail out. And they got in compliance. They wanted to plead. They wanted to negotiate. But as a high school dropout, male sexual abuse victim, had a child on the way, I had been bullied after being sexually abused. I mean, that in itself was the ingredients of failure. So when the dude challenged me, you know, you don't know what to do with that. He didn't know what was on the other side of that barrel. He didn't understand what was on the other side of that trigger. And I let him have it. And after we created or intensified the chaos, we bailed out of there. You know, we mobbed back to my associate from Miami, bailed back into his car. We left. But I'm going to show you how sick I was as a teenager, 19-year-old. Even at that young age, I had learned that violence would change your mind. The sight of a firearm would change your mind. Violence changed situations. You may not respect me, but in certain situations, once I exhibit violence, I'm going to change your perspective on how you see me and those who are associated with me. I'm 19 at the time. This is just how I thought. But there was a sickness associated with that. And that sickness was, we had gotten away. Off in the wind. Dudes didn't even know how to pronounce my name if they knew it. And in my sickness, I said, man, let's drive back through there. I want to see how much damage I did. Dude was like, what? I said, drive back through there. I want to see how much damage I did. I wanted to see it, be engulfed by the results of violence. We drove back through there, and apparently one of the individuals on the front porch, because at that time you had law enforcement out searching for additional shell casings with their flashlights. They was on patrol cars as well as on foot. And we rode back through there. One of the guys that recognized his car was like, that looked like the car they were, because they knew him. So they could associate him with the car. Police got behind us. I was like, man, give him a chase. I'm on the passenger seat and I'm strapped. Keep in mind, prior to us hitting the block again, I felt comfortable for them to relieve themselves of the firearms that I had provided. Because none of these cats was packing like that. Because me, the lifestyle I was living, I knew that at some point I would be engaged in some form of warfare. So I started to accumulate weapons. And once we served this purpose, I hit my spots again and took what I gave them and restashed them. But I kept mine on me. And when the police got behind us, we bent that block, Headland Avenue, off of East South Street. And I'm talking about he was pulling up, because I'm sure the officer, by the time he was pursuing us, he was already on the, hitting his peoples up like, look, I think I got him. And by the time we bent that right, they pulled in squad cars. And it's crazy because you had officers in the vicinity who were already on foot that bailed out of their automobiles and were looking for us on foot, because at the time, they didn't know how we was moving on foot. They didn't know. However, when that Cutlass hit the block, it's like, man, that's them. And I can recall vividly, officers approaching a car like this. And me being a teenager, I quit school. I quit being a child. I wanted to be grown. I had quit jobs at the time. I didn't see the reality of what I was about to, enter. And I was arrested at the age of 19, sent to prison. Wasn't released till I was 32. Yeah. Going in, it was this level of fear. Because, you're embarking on a territory that you're not familiar with. It's not like entering a neighborhood where you can, retreat to a place of dwelling. Prison, in my mind, was like, this is open territory, 24/7. Your bed is not your bed. Your cell is not your cell. You are at the mercy of the facility. What officers allow to happen, if officers don't get to you in time, if there's a situation, what's in you is going to matter. And that's just how I perceive that. But, prison life, it was a challenge in the sense that, it's not about just knife play. You got dudes in there who their hygienes are not up to par. It used to be a day and time when only the strong survive. I learned in prison that only the weak survive. You got guys who are rats, snitches. They living good. They living longer than the thugs are. So this whole outlook that, snitches get stitches, don't tell. What prison gives you is a behind the scene look at what life is like. I've had a bottom bed. You in a dorm area, you most likely gonna be on a bunk bed consisting of 2 beds, sometimes 3. Depending on the need for space. But I've been in a situation where I've had a bunk bed and I've sat back and I've seen guys across the dorm click up. 3, 4, 5 guys click up. They plotting. And within a matter of minutes, I'm seeing them act out on the plot. You don't see that in society. You don't see dudes in the alley plotting. You don't see dudes in an abandoned house plotting. You don't see dudes in their homes plotting. You don't see that in society. But in prison, the location where they plotted, one of those guys lived on that bed, on that bunk. Meet up over here. And I saw, because everything is unmasked, and you see things behind the scene. You see guys, for instance, there was one institution I was serving time at, and cigarettes was prohibited. So a $4, $5, $6 pack of cigarettes easily be $50. A single cigarette could easily be $20, $10, $6, depending on who you dealt with. So just this atmosphere was nothing like I had experienced before. But when I went to prison, I was infatuated with hate. I wasn't into this thing about, making new associates. I can recall one of like my first nights after, we did the test, STD test. They check you for, HIV, hepatitis, stuff like that. And I, of course, passed. And they put me in a major population. And I can recall a guy approaching me, older, dark-skinned guy. And this is some of the game that guys will pull up on you. They might not know you from nowhere. But they'll pull up and be like, where you from? And you open up and you tell them where you from. And if this convict, this guy who's been around the system, this may be his third or fourth, second bid or whatever. If he done time with somebody from your city, he throw that guy's name up. Oh, do you know such and such? He's from there. And what happening is, by you being from that city, this motherfucker could be from out of state. He could be from across the state. But because he know that somebody that you know, that's what he try to create the common ground to get you to let your guard down. Yeah, that's my big homeboy. He's in jail now. He's headed up. Or, yeah, I did time with him in the county jail. He's in the system somewhere. That's to get you to let your guard down. And the whole time he's picking your brain. Not picking your brain as for what you know, picking your brain in the sense of how fast does it take for you to let your guard down. Sometimes it's not about what the fuck you know. It's what you don't know. And not knowing is, how do you engage a conversation with somebody that you guys have literally been talking for 3 to 5 minutes? How do you open up? That was a result with me. I went in. Like, man, can't you see I just got out the shower? The fuck, man. And I never saw that guy again. Because I'm assuming, I'm going to make the assumption that in his mind, he was like, either this is a young fool that I don't need to get involved with, or he's been educated. I've seen dudes come in there, man, with those styrofoam slippers, get to their bed, pair of Reeboks under the bed, sneakers under the bed, a couple candy bars on top of his bed, and they put their feet in them shoes and crack the seal of that candy bar. It's a wrap. I can recall a guy they called Sleepy. Sleepy resembled a black swamp monster. He stepped with one foot and then dragged the other. He stepped with one foot and then dragged the other. And he had a sleepy eye. He was known for turning Caucasian guys out. And it's crazy, man. I'm minding my own business because, I write. And I would also, do my art. I mean, my dad is an artist. I got an uncle who's an artist on my mom's side. So what I had to do was hone my craft. So there'd be times when I'm on my bed, I'm doing greeting cards. My family couldn't produce. That's what sustained me. And even when they could produce, that's what I depended on, my art and my ability to write. And this Caucasian guy, he came into the block, the dorm, and we in prison now. This is no county jail shit. And he was like, man, what is this institution like? What is this camp like? And I gave him a rundown. And I must have been moved to go out on a weight pile or something. I wanted to go work out. By the time I made it back, keep in mind when he and I was talking, there was no mattress on his bed. By the time I made it back, somebody had assisted him with getting a mattress. He put his feet in those Reebok sneakers and cracked the seal on those candy bars. It was then that Sleepy, who had already had a young boy, had him go into the shower, turn the showers on. We were about to shower. And Sleepy stepped in the shower. An introduction to the prison game could be a guy looking at you some kind of way, not necessarily threatening, but showing interest. And if you don't check it, ABCs, you check that. Nigga, you know me from somewhere? Why you watching me? Because see, now you about to make me paranoid. You check that. If it's constant eye contact, you check that. And for a lot of guys, you know, that don't happen. But he went to the showers and turned that shower stall on, and what eventually happened was the breaking process was, if a man can have you go to the shower and turn it on, wait for him. I mean, that's over half the battle there. And what happened was Sleepy got in there and he started out with the masturbation process. And we're masturbating, looking at this guy, while looking at this guy. And because there was no resistance then, the next thing is intercourse. I've seen it unfold. It had gotten to a point in prison where, you know, I was in my 20s in my prime. And even in my 30s, because I was released when I was 32. But my 20s, that was my prime. I'm gathering information. I'm filtering this shit. And fuck you if I don't like it. I did 12 and a half years. I've been to 13 different institutions. Motherfuckers don't move around the system like that. My thing is, if I got an issue with dudes in uniform, inmates, convicts, I'm going to address it. But if I got issues with folks in uniform, I'm going to address that too. And because I've had issues with folk in uniform, that contributed to me being like, you know, get his ass out of the institution, get him out of there. But I will say this, being incarcerated, I would never give credit to barbed wire fences and brick walls for change, because even prior to going in at the age of 17, 18, 16 years of age, I found myself in the company of men in their early 30s, even early 40s. And we was talking about racism, economic issues, social issues. And I've heard, people tell me, you've always been head and shoulders above the rest. So I would never give credit to brick walls and barbed wire fences from, intensifying my learning. There's some shit I went in there with. What prison does is it allows you to see behind the scenes dealing with people. And it's going to either kill what's in you or it's going to intensify it. And for me, man, I'm with all kind of bullshit. I'm clean cut, soft spoken, but I'm so with that bullshit. I don't shoot for moving automobiles. I come in your place of dwelling, even if I'm outnumbered. That's the kind of life that I live. Shoot from no move. What we gonna shoot up the house for? When you got an honest gambler in this house that had nothing to do with, my people's getting robbed. So nah, we're not finna shoot from no moving automobile. We're gonna go in there. We're going in there where they at. And for those who oppose, they gonna get elbows. And I thought I was gonna die in prison. I admit that. When you start embarking on, the average dude, when you start getting along like 8 years in prison, that's when you start seeing the reality, because 8 years give you an opportunity to see guys go home, whether that be end of sentence, EOS. EOS mean end of sentence, they killed the sentence, or parole out, or they catch a program. When you start seeing enough guys go home like that, or you start seeing dudes die around you, like in, one case, there was a guy named Marcel. Marcel had approximately 14 days before he was going home, and he died in prison. I can remember a guy, I won't say his name, but he had approximately 45 days, and he died. Situation where he died. And keep in mind, like I said, prison is not consistent of like knife play. People think about prison life. Hollywood have created this hype that your biggest fear is if not homosexual activity, being turned out or rape, it's going to be violence. But you got people who pay their tithing, their offering in church. They pay their taxes, but they put on uniforms. They come to the infirmary. You know, they're in the medical field, and they will neglect the fuck out of you. They will watch you die. And sometimes it's pressure from perhaps a warden, captain, somebody within an institution. They don't give a damn about you. Or it's beyond the warden and the captain. But there are people who will let you die. So, you know, and then as I mentioned, you got guys now whose hygiene is not up to par. So now you got to wrestle with a guy who don't like taking, you know, a shower every day or every other day. So it's beyond the knife play, man. It's psychologically, it's a lot that goes with, you know, doing time. Prior to me getting out, they started implementing murals that involved substance abuse, things of that nature, to try to brighten your day. But overall, your walls are gray, beige, and white. Clothes are beige, white, maybe blue, maybe orange, depending on where you're doing your time at. But it's not to encourage you, to spark drive in you. It's definitely to beat your ass, you know, down. I can recall in 2099, I was at an institution, and I was, you know, assigned to the kitchen. And my thing is, you know, and that goes back to everything that you know, the person that you on the streets, it don't have to just be violence that will help you sustain life in prison. But even if you have etiquette, respect, when you take that into prison, sometimes that's misunderstood. So there was a kitchen steward wanted me to go to a table with a dirty wash rag and wipe around guys who were still eating. In my mind, I said, well, I wouldn't want nobody around me, armpits, dirty washcloth, wiping around my plate while I'm eating. So I didn't do it. I was put out the kitchen, assigned to the farm squad. It was in the month of July. Perhaps this was, 99. This was 99. And I went out there on that squad in July. There were no shade trees. You couldn't see the end of these cucumber fields, these squash fields. Couldn't see the end of them. And I said, man, no more will I endure this shit. 1 July was enough. The next day, they called my name. I had already made up in my mind, because keep in mind, I quit school. I had quit jobs. Apparently, I had deviated from wanting to be a father to engage in this criminal life, so I had quit that. I was a quitter. And I thought I could quit this shit. So I'm like, man, I'm not checking out. And they constantly calling my name, Harry Saffold Jr. report to the blacktop. And I had already said within my mind, man, I'm finna fix me some coffee, dump me some cocoa in it, and I'm going out here on this compound. And I did that. I walked out to the softball field, walked up to the top bleacher, and I sat there. And they constantly calling my name, Harry Saffold report to the blacktop. Now I'm creating a security risk. We got to find out, where's this inmate? By this time, I was about 20 years of age. And I'm thinking that I can just quit shit. And this is the danger with you youth out here. You think that what your mom and your grandparents let you get away with within the four corners. Man, there's a world out here that don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a damn about your youth. They don't give a damn about how creative you can be in your bedroom. They don't give a damn about how inclined you are when it comes to electronics and the online shit. They don't care nothing about that. Breaking you and keeping you in compliance. And here I am, 20. A thinker. And apparently what happened was they shut the compound down, because now they got to find out, where is this inmate that we keep calling, who is not at his living quarters and he's not on the blacktop? Where is he? This is a safety issue now, security issue. He locked the institution down, and of course I had to go in. And when I made it up to my bed, I had already been told that these officers carry nightsticks that are every bit of 3 to 4 feet long. That sounded so like over exaggerated. When I got to my bed, this officer was about 5'6". This clown got a nightstick on the side of him, every bit about 3 feet long. And he asked me, "Wow, they been calling you. Why aren't you on the blacktop?" But this African-American woman, she come up the staircase because I'm on the top tier. She go in on me. "Why your ass ain't on the blacktop? The fuck is wrong with you? We calling your damn name. You got to check out. You got to get up out of here. You got a squad to go to." And that, I snapped. Before you know it, me and her was walking down the hall. We cursing at each other like we or a couple in a relationship. She mad at me and I'm mad at her. She done called me bitches a few times. Before you know it, you the bitch. When I got to that back gate on that blacktop, they showed me I can't beat them verbally and I can't beat them physically. And it was then that I devoted myself to learning about the world, that I lived in. There are laws that govern the outer world as well as the inner world. And there are underlaws, the black market in the outer world, but it also exists in the inner world. And I never knew that learning those laws would make officers look at me some kind of way. But they got me that day and they sent me out on that squad. And I said, "Man, I'm not picking shit." I said, "I'm not picking." They don't even call the truck because by this time the officer at the back gate was like, "Yeah, call the truck, take his ass out there." And I said, "I'm not picking nothing." So the officer, he pulled up on the truck and I said, "I'm telling you, I'm not picking nothing. They don't need me going out there." I got on the back of the truck, the bed anyway, and he drove me out there. And when I got there, Officer Stroud kind of reminded me of a comedian, deceased Robin Williams. They resemble each other. And I got off the bed of that truck and he told one of the inmates, "Give him a bucket." Told me which road to hit. I said, "Man, I'm not picking shit." And I took that bucket from the inmate. I slung it out there in the cucumber field. He snatched the radio from his hip, called him, said, "Man, come get him." The truck come back and got me and took me back to the institution. And they put me on what was called a hitching post. Now it's called, at that time it's called a hitching rail. A hitching post was something that they utilized in the 1800s. It was utilized for horses that would, flee, depart, drift off, or for unruly mule. They would take these mules or horses and they would attach them to a hitching post. Hitching post had a rod that come like this and 2 rods that come down into the ground. Come out the ground and then there's one complete. And they would attach them. Well, in prison, in Alabama, they attach you to that, handcuff you. And this was morning time when I bucked. So I was on that hitching post from the AM hours up until 4. They brought me a sack lunch, but I was so angry that I didn't even want to eat. They didn't uncuff me. I'm standing there from the morning time up until 4. Ain't no coming off there at lunch. Ain't no coming off there at 2. I'm standing there attached. I got handcuffs on, and I'm on the hitching post. And it wasn't until years later that I actually learned what the hitching post, or the hitching rail, that it had derived from the term hitching post and what it had been used for. When you are depicted or put in a situation where you are seen as an animal, then you get treated like one. So the hitching post was something that was used for mules, horses, and they just changed the term, hitching rail, and put my ass on it. I even caught the chain gang, Limestone. I had heard of a hip-hop song, that's the sound of a man rapping singing on the chain gang, and I thought that was just a hip-hop song. I got a taste of that where I was attached to approximately 28 to 30 men, in shackles, and we had to walk miles to the work site. And if a guy had an issue with another guy and they got to fight, you was in the midst of that. If an officer had an issue with a guy who, was chained next to you, you was caught up in that. So, prison didn't change me. it didn't break me. But I honestly feel that whether I had gone or not, I would eventually turn out to be the person that I am. I feel like we as people, to some degree, are responsible, or we respond to our beginnings. And having been sexually abused at the age of 10 by 2 different males, that raised a question, and it would have also raised a rebellion in me. A lot of times people put you in a category, when you don't comply. And not knowing your story, not knowing why you acted out. In honesty, nobody had created an atmosphere to pose that question, like, why are you so angry? Yeah, they would ask that question, but nobody would be like, create that atmosphere, because nobody's going to open up to you unless you first create an atmosphere. You have to create an atmosphere for people to be like, hey, I want to share something with you. Nobody had created that atmosphere. And nobody had created an atmosphere for me to open up and be like, man, I was forced to suckle a relative, or I was forced to suckle a neighbor. And having experienced that, it's like, maybe God don't have the whole world in his hand and me in it, because that was a song that I was taught. He's got the whole world, in his hand. And so as I mentioned, when I see the youth out here now trying to line their lifestyle up with hip-hop music or R&B music, trying to make that a theme for their lifestyle, for a child, he's got the whole world in his hand. It's my theme song. I want to line my life up with that. God is an on-time God. So like when you fail, when you don't show up, that triggered something within me. It's like relationships. You got people out here right now, and I tell dudes, whatever dude took your woman's virginity, that's who you competing with. Unless she's a wild chick, if a woman lay down and give herself to a dude, it's because she wanted to. She wanted to give her, not just her virginity, but her eggs to produce his children. But when he hurt her, every dude after him got to compete with him. And that's just what it was. When you taught a certain thing by people that you trust, you love, grandparents, parents, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and you don't see no light. And what you thought was truth that you applied, it seemed that falsehood overrides that. And then the way, him being the way, you started to create your own way, and that becomes somewhat of a comfort zone. Like, man, I know how to ride. I know what the speed limit is, what I should ride. So your way becomes your way. His truth is not truth because, as I mentioned, falsehood has overridden it. As far as life, you do what you can to sustain it. As far as life, you do what you can to sustain it. Yeah.